Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Reimagine Innovations Spotlight webcast. My name is Tim Hodson. I am the Editorial Director for the Specialty Agriculture and Horticulture publications at Great American Media Services. We are the publishers of Fruit Growers News, Vegetable Growers News, Organic Grower, Spudman, Produce Processing, and National Nut Grower magazines. It's a mouthful, but we got a lot of them. Today, we're here to recognize the recipient of our inaugural Specialty Grower Sustainability Award, Ron Wagner, who is the owner of Wagner Farms in Rome, New York. Joining me today is Stephen Klosterman, the managing editor of Organic Grower magazine. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we want to provide you with some insight into what Wagner Farms is doing and has been doing to set the standard for sustainable innovation in agriculture. This will be your opportunity to learn more about what Wagner Farms is doing, but also improve your operations by learning what Ron's doing. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Leslie Garcia. She is the Manager of Sustainability and Stewardship for Valent, U.S.A. Valent is the official sponsor of the 2021 Specialty Grower Sustainability Award. And Leslie is here to tell us a little bit more about Valent and their commitment to sustainability, and also to introduce Ron and talk a little bit more about what they're doing. Just a little about Leslie's background. She manages Valent's sustainability stewardship commitments, which entails working with an external network of alliance partners such as pollinator research groups, pesticide education associations, and she helps support Valent's internal stewardship and sustainability initiatives. She's been with Valent for 14 years now and has been in the agriculture industry for about 20 years. She's an expert in environmental and pesticide laws and pesticide use and stewardship. At Valent, Leslie gets to collaborate with a diverse group of people that have a common core of supporting farmers and agriculture, all sustainably. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Leslie.
Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. On behalf of Valent USA, I want to extend our thanks to Great American for co-creating this award to recognize innovative and sustainable growers who understand the importance of balancing profit with impact on people, the planet, and their local communities. I also wanted to extend our thanks to United Fresh for hosting today's event. Valent is committed to advancing sustainable agriculture, which includes developing conventional, biological, and organic product solutions while working with all types of growers to enhance their operations. Our diverse offerings includes our sustainable solutions line, which includes biological insecticides such as Dipel-DF, Pyganic, retained plant growth regulator, and our soil health amendment product, Mycoply Endomax. Products that complement sustainable practices and in turn support growers to ensure a safe and abundant food supply, provide for their families and workers, and pass along the tradition of farming to the next generation. At our core, Valent works in partnership to power the continuous improvement of growers, ag retailers, and this award winner embodies what it means to fully embrace this goal. Please enjoy this Valent video.
Sustainability only works if it works for you. Let us help you build on what you're already doing to achieve a more viable, sustainable, and profitable operation. Learn more at ValentSustainableSolutions.com. Let's break new ground. Valent Sustainable Solutions. Always read and follow label instructions.
Thank you. Because our approach for a sustainable future is grower-centric, we work to provide growers multiple effective options for their operations that can align with existing and new sustainable practices based on grower needs and priorities. We provide growers with many different solutions from biological and soil health products to a broad range of conventional crop protection products. We look forward to developing and supplying growers with innovative products that support sustainable practices so that farms can continue to provide society with health, food, and prosper for generations to come. Tim, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Thank you very much. And once again, and thanks again to the folks at Valent for sponsoring the 2021 Specialty Grower Sustainability Award. Now, before we bring Ron on here to talk about what Wagner Farms is doing, I wanted to let you know we should have some time to take some questions at the end of the discussion. So if you have any questions for Ron about what they're doing or how they're doing things, feel free to click on the Q&A icon there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can in our allotted time. Now I'd like to introduce Stephen Klosterman, the managing editor of Organic Grower, who's going to tell us a little bit more about Ron and Wagner Farms, their sustainability efforts, and then he's going to pick Ron's brain on the how and why of what they are doing. So take it away, Steve.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Leslie. We also have an opportunity to meet our 2021 Specialty Grower Sustainability Award winner. In Rome, New York, Wagner Farms used to be a commercial scale grower with nearly 200 acres under cultivation using conventional growing techniques. But fast forward to the present day, and they've been able to do more with less, not only by changing their business model, but by embracing sustainable growing techniques. A corn burner harnesses a sustainable energy source for his farm. New crop rotations protect the soil while reducing the need for fertilizer, and technologies lower costs. We have a short media clip on Wagner Farms, and I think we'll roll that right now. Wow, that was really great. Ron, are you there? Can you start your
Yes, I
video?
am.
There's the man of the
I'm
hour. Hey, you took a fantastic photo of that award earlier. Do you have it with you?
Of course I do. Right there, baby.
I
I appreciate it. I like to thank Valent for sponsoring it, of course. And thank you guys for, picking me.
Problem. I think it's made of recycled green glass.
Yes, definitely. It's quite the heavy little paperweight, I guess. It'll be on our office desk here at Wagner Farms for many years to come. Okay.
Well, Ron, I know you're a busy guy. As we were planning this, you're out working quite a bit. So thanks for taking the time to be here. Time isn't cheap for farmers, especially.
No, I know we've been playing tag back and forth a lot, haven't we, for the last month now, trying to get this arranged. So,
well, thanks so much. I know when you were applying, when you were nominated for this award, you called your farming operation a hybrid growing system, which puts more focus on ecosystem and crops.
that's correct.
What are your goals as a grower?
Stay in business is primary, but you know what? We put our soil health and our plant health first and foremost as a grower. It's not the bottom line at sometimes. It's actually how can we be sustainable with reducing chemical usage, using a combination of farming practices such as conventional mixed with organic, or as I call it, a hybrid system, which is a combination of the both ways. Years ago, we started out on the more organic side, and we went conventional for a reason, and then have gone back to a combination. In the last 5 or 8 years now have been a combination of the two. So it's been vital to our farming operation to get a higher quality product using less inputs while safeguarding the quality and the production for human consumptions.
Great, great. And I know you said at one point you had a large scale 170 acre acreage being
That's
grown.
right.
What was the hardest part about just making the decision to kind of scale back to fewer acres?
It wasn't sort of much of a hard decision. It was just a forced upon us decision over the years. We suffered a substantial loss in 2013 and a substantial multiple flood event season that wiped us out and financially crippled us for a couple of years. And then that was combined with a loss of land for eminent domain as a development forced us off our most productive rented land, which our farm was financed based upon that land acreage. So at 170 acres, we were a mixed combination of produce, grain products, and other, you pick items such as raspberries and stuff, mixture. The reduction over the years, we had to figure out a way to make the same money, make the same living off of a lot less acreage than we used to off the 170 acres. And, it's been a by the numbers trick all the way along the way as far as, okay, what's the cost of this? What's the cost of that? Right down to the exact penny on every single item we produce, and what's the profit margin needed to actually survive. So that's been the hardest thing, is actually knowing exact costs. And I am all about numbers in farming. If there's a penny to be saved along the way, we do. However, I'd never sacrifice my plant health or my soil conditions, my soil health, the biology of the soil. I understand that if you have a nice healthy plant, you can reduce a lot of your input costs, such as pesticide use, chemical use, fungicides, insecticides. Sometimes that little extra dollar you spend on plant health nutrient, either using pelletized lime in the spring ahead of planting for that calcium and magnesium release during the plant season, growing season, or, okay, we're going to apply an extra foliar feed of, boron because the plant, needs that boron to set properly without losing because of blossom end rot or something. It's a very fine line that we do, and I understand every single aspect of it along the way. So, that's a vital part of our farm over the years is, okay, we can make more off of 70 acres than what we used to off 170 acres today. So that's been a vital, important part of it.
Is that how many you're doing right now? 70 acres?
We were running 70 acres last year. We're actually up a little bit this year. We're running about 80 acres. We gained some of our old land back that we had used in the past via animal management agreement between us and the landowners. So we've gained back some of our old land we used to use, and that's going to be a vital for our farm survival for the next couple of years. So at 80 acres, it's a mixed combination of grain products, mostly corn, and produce these days.
What was the first season where, after you lost those crucial acres, but what was the first season where you said we have to do things differently?
So sometime around 2015, 2016, we really downsized we finally let go of all the leased property, and we concentrated just on the main farm, which is 106 acres with 70 acres tillable. And right around there was where we really started just concentrating on the main home farm. And of course, we knew going into it that we were going to suffer some animal losses, and we have spent the last 3-4 years fine-tuning ways around to solving those animal losses and overcoming them, using some innovative, creative ideas, and finding new ways to bring income in on the farm off of that smaller acreage has been vital and part of our venture has been agritourism, our sunflower fields, which actually is I hate sunflowers, I'll be honest, but I look at a sunflower as nothing more than a commodity crop that you lose the seed before you ever harvest it to the birds. And I understand that. However, customers will pay to walk through them and take photos of them. And our sunflowers have actually become a vital part of our crop rotation plan on our farm, and actually saves us major fertilizer, major chemical usage in following years for crops that go on that sunflower ground. And it's, we've incorporated a lot into it, and we found a new way.
I want to go back to the agritourism in a minute, but while we're talking about sunflowers, I had never heard of those, and maybe it's just because I'm not a grower, but I had not heard of sunflowers as a cover crop or a crop rotation. How did you come across that, and how does that work with your other crops in the rotation?
So about we've grown sunflowers since 2012, since we bought our combine and we got into the grain business, and we messed around with sunflowers a little bit, and just as strictly as a bird seed item, value added retail item. And we got out of doing sunflowers for a while because we found I was relying on the crop insurance payment instead of actually the crop, and I didn't like that myself. So I broke my habit before it became a bad habit. A couple years back, 3-4 years back, we tried sunflowers again, and we invited the public to come out and enjoy them. And while doing so, we found that they really do a beautiful job of breaking up the soil. Their root systems are massive. A single black oil sunflower or gray striped sunflower plant, the root balls are over 1 foot in diameter, very fibrous, very hairy root systems that will break up that top 4 or 5, 6 inches of soil. And as it decomposes the following year, it's almost like growing soybeans on ground. And if anyone grown soybeans on ground, you know what I'm talking about as far as what soybeans do for the soils. They really really create a nice seed bed for following crops. The downfall to sunflowers is the biomass. They're a heavy biomass. It takes several years to degrade and decompose. So you got to have the heavy tillage equipment to actually chew them up. You got to have the proper mowing equipment to chew them up, mulch them ahead of the following year's crop. You're not going to plant a lettuce crop or a carrot seed crop on top of sunflower ground. We like going in with our grain corn the following year, or sweet corn, something big seeded, and a row crop on top of it that we could even no-till on top of that. And we've done both no-till and zone tillage on sunflower ground, or even just minimum tillage, and it works really well. The other thing about sunflowers is it actually is a scavenger. It will scavenge all the nutrients out of that top layer of soil, puts it right into the stalk. It's just like doing a groundhog radish, except for instead of below ground like a radish does, as far as storage, the sunflower is storing it above ground, and you just have to figure out how to actually mulch it and start getting it to decompose and release it back into the soil and incorporate it into the soil, which we have done a good job doing so over the years. Combination of offset discs and zone tillage, and this year we upgraded to a disc chisel plow, brand new unit this year, that allows us to incorporate a little bit more trash than just the offset disc does or the zone till does. So we're still experimenting with that, and we're having really good success. We find with the sunflowers we can cut back on fertilizer about 25% the following year, and actually get about a 10 to 15% higher yields on grain corn, just because of the sunflower nutrient retention rates. And it really does make a difference. I mean, it's been a vital part of our crop rotation. I treat sunflowers today as nothing more than a cover crop of, winter rye or winter wheat, triticale, something like that, other than the fact it's a row crop and we're planting on 30-inch rows. It's nothing more than a cover crop that I make money on.
Great. Hey, that's not bad. money for cover crops. I want to applaud what you've been able to do with sustainability, reducing your, at one point you said reducing your pesticide usage by 75%. In your experience, what are some of the hardest problems to address or replace without synthetic chemicals?
So years back, being a conventional grower, traditional, we did a lot of plastic mulch. We did a lot of drip tape irrigation. We did the fad. We found that we still had to use a lot of chemicals as far as weed control goes under the plastic. If we didn't, we would wind up with weed issues that destroyed the crops. So we still were using absorbent amounts of pesticide as far as herbicides go. And some of them were really nasty stuff. I mean, used to be out there in a white Tyvek suit and a respirator and nobody cared. Then social media sort of was created and everyone had a phone, and we couldn't no longer be out there in a Tyvek suit because anyone driving by would post that you were killing them. So I seriously took a hard look at it. I bought a brand new mulch layer one year. I used it one year. The next year I sold it, and I sold all the mulch equipment. And I decided that was the time I got out of using plastic mulch because I got tired of what I was doing. And I found that, the weed issues were not being taken care of. The crops were not doing what they said they were supposed to do. So that was around the 2012, 2013, just after the flood of 2013, we bought the zone till, our Umberfurf zone builder, which is on that screen behind you there with the John Deere pulling it through a nice rye stubble or a barley stubble. And that was when I really started concentrating on using cover crops combined with zone till as far as our weed control methods. And by doing that, I found that we could cut our pesticide use, and I found not only herbicide, but insecticide and fungicides, because we were relying on the soil health again, instead of just, relying on the plant itself to do it, keep pushing more chemical into it to do whatever it has to do. We found that relying on the soil biology, we cut some of our pesticide uses back 75%. We weren't using the herbicides like we used to. We weren't using the insecticides. We weren't using the fungicides, and we didn't have to. And that to me was just the savings in pesticide alone covered the cost of buying the zone builder that year. And following years ever since, with use of the zone builder, we've watched our crops normally under normal circumstances out yield conventionally grown by the same, by our competitors. We'll out yield them yield wise, plant health wise. Our plants are healthier. They appear better. It's an overall better system. On the commercial end of it, the conventional side of it, getting in your mind that you're not going to use as many pesticides and not as many chemicals, not as many herbicides, it's sort of hard. There's a fine line, and I'll admit I still use some herbicides. Our corn crop, we use traditional Lumax for weed control. You know what? It gives us great weed control, but I haven't used Roundup on corn in 10 years. So we eliminated Roundup just about completely off the farm. And that's one of those public outcry ones, which,
sure,
we had to sacrifice that. Fine. We were able to use Lumax, and the following year, actually, because we put this year's onion crop and potato crop is actually on last year's popcorn crop. So last year, the popcorn was treated with Lumax. This year, our potato field has had zero spray used on it as far as herbicides, insecticides, or fungicides at this point. Our onion crop has only had one application of herbicide just as a preventative. And frankly, I probably could have gotten away without using it because, yes, they say there is no carryover of, herbicide from the year before, but we found by using our corn crop as a weed eliminator crop the year before, the following crop is actually really good without use of pesticides. And you have to approach it as a multi-year basis in your head, as far as, if I do this year, we don't have to do it next year. And that's been the hardest part of the whole entire process that we've done over the last, since 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. 5, 6, 7 years that we've been doing this differently than everyone else and differently than we used to. And it's still a learning curve. I'll admit it. It's a learning curve from year to year as far as the weather. If you get a hot, dry spell, it changes up the whole entire thing. If you get a wet, cold spell, it changes all your plans, and it changes how you're going to attack things. We've replaced herbicides with mechanical cultivation. Our tine weeder, last year we bought a brand new APV tine weeder, 20-foot unit. I love it. We eliminated so much herbicide use in specialty crop or little small crops that have no profit margin to begin with. It allows us to weed them and get them out of the ground fast, as far as the crop rotations and the crop lengths, or even on a situation where we wind up with a torrential downpour and sun-baked soil when the crop might not germinate, we'll take that tine weeder across and break the crust off the soil, saving the crop. That's been a great tool as far as, okay, that tool replaced, how many acres worth of herbicide. It just, that's the type of approach we take, and I have taken. And that's the organic side of it. Okay, we're using the tine weeder in place of herbicide.
And about our organics, and I have to ask, because I edit
Yep.
a magazine for organic guys, and they would want to ask, I'm sure with all that you've done, you must have thought about the possibility of organic certification and all the challenges, but also some rewards that could bring. Is organic certification a goal for you down the road? Why or why not?
No, it really comes down to market.
Okay.
We don't have the market for organic returns financially or profitability on our farm or our area.
Okay.
If you look at it demographic wise, there's such a small organic demand, or there's such a small little bit of organic growing around us. It's a niche item. It doesn't fit our goals. It doesn't fit our system. I have some very tricky weeds that we still have to use some herbicides on. It depends on the soil. We have soils that we are solid gravel to solid sand. We even have muck soils and clay. So each one is a different beast of its own. Each one requires different equipment, different approach, and different crop rotations and different systems. We tried an organic field last year and we failed miserably.
Oh.
And we had 4 acres of organic produce. The deer enjoyed every bit of it. What they didn't get, the weeds sure did. That it was such a dry season that we just couldn't cultivate. We couldn't get a cultivator in the ground. There was really no way to salvage it. And you know what? It was a life lesson. I learned, and I found going into it, there was very little support for ourselves. And I guess it's one of those things that you either start out as an organic grower and you remain an organic grower and you build your clientele, but trying to go back to an organic situation once you're a conventional grower, you just don't have the support network that you used to, or you would as just a straight organic grower. So we came up with our hybrid system where we incorporate the organic ideas of cultivation and cover crops and reductions. And we haven't actually used a fungicide or insecticide on our farm sprayed on a crop in 2 years.
Wow. Wow.
We still apply in furrow at planting on certain crops, obviously, because one-time application up front protects us and eliminates us from having to apply a protecting spray while there's pollinators present, during the growing season. I have honeybees on the farm, so my bee guy has entrusted me to not kill his honeybees. And I have taken great measures to, we've bought in bumblebee quads. We've used bumblebee quads on the farm. I don't want to kill those because those are very expensive also. And, we actually look at it this way. Part of our agritourism business is actually, okay, we've got a lot of milkweed and ditch lines that we allow to grow. The monarch butterfly population has flourished on our farm.
Oh, that's great.
We look at it as this way. The insects are beneficial. Occasionally you get that nuisance insect that pops up in the potato crop, or, something might hit an ear of sweet corn. But I found last year that with using the crop rotation plan that we have, we didn't spray an ear of sweet corn last year, and we had almost no earworm issues last year. And we do not use traded sweet corn. I try to stay away from anything traded as far as insect resistance goes, as far as the vegetable crops go. Obviously, the grain corns are traded, but that's because that's what's available. So,
what beneficials? Now, of course, beneficials are in nature naturally, and hopefully they show up more if you're doing the right thing. But do you also buy beneficials or bring them in? Insects?
The only thing we've brought in is actually the honeybees and the bumblebees. Everything else, I rely on Mother Nature providing. We've got plenty of we've got a lot of DEC uncommon land around us. We've got lots of natural weed ground around us, wooded lots. There's a lot of goldenrod fields that have overgrown, old agricultural fields that the state owns that is no longer used. So I feel as far as beneficials go, we have a plethora of them. There's plenty of them around. We see praying mantises, we see ladybugs, we see butterflies, moths, you name it, we've seen it. Bumblebees. Our farm has over 2 miles, almost nearly 3 miles of ditch lines as part of our drainage system, as far as our water control and our nutrient runoff control systems. Every one of those ditch lines has a bumblebee hive in it somewhere, natural bumblebees. And by allowing those natural insects to have areas to grow and flourish, we just mowed a bunch of our ditch lines off for the first time in 3 years this last 2 weeks, just to maintain them. But they were mowed off once in the last 3 years, and we're not going to do any harm to the insect population by doing so. We're just maintaining our property. And actually, in most cases, we'll probably see an influx of bumblebees now because they can find more holes and more locations easier to get to. So we've taken measures to build natural habitat on the farm over the years that bring those in, and we don't have to outsource, luckily.
That's great. That's great. So let me see here. You mentioned zone tillage earlier, and that to me seems, what I know of it, it seems that that would really require knowing the contours of your land every, quarter acre. What's your secret to the science and artistry of zone tillage?
Lots of dumb luck.
Okay.
Trial and error.
All right.
And 23 years of experience on the same ground.
I think that last one is yeah.
We don't go in on new ground and zone build without doing traditional tillage first.
Okay.
The zone building is a part of our rotational crop practice. So I try to do a 5-year crop rotation.
Okay.
Once or twice out of that 5 years, we'll conventional plow. Disc, fit the ground. Normally, it's usually going to either get soybeans or they're going to get small grains on that ground. The following years, we plant row crops, or we try to do maybe sometimes some no-till, certain crops no-till. Our soils don't do no-till very well. They're heavier. The winters with the heavy snowfalls pack it too tight. So you'll see a huge loss in crop yields. So that's where the zone building comes in. Our Umberfurth zone builder is only a 2-row unit. It was what we had, what was sized to our equipment at the time we bought it back in 2014. It was our very first piece of new equipment we bought after the flood of 13. And we decided to go that route because we had done some trial and error troubleshooting with a unit as a test plot unit before, and we liked what we saw. So the zone building, you have to know your geology of your soil. You don't go in on a rock-filled soil, and you don't go in on a muck soil and try to zone build, because your equipment will sink out of sight if it falls into those zones in wet seasons. However, if you have soils like we do, which have a tight compaction layer from previous farms, conventional plowing, conventional tillage, conventional planting, disking, working soils for 100 years, the zone builder was the best. It has been the #1 best tool ever bought on our farm. It's the best return ever on any piece of equipment. Yield wise, anything we use zone building on, our yields are up anywhere to up to 50% higher than traditional conventional tillage. It reduces labor costs, it reduces fuel usage, overall expenses by as much as 75% per acre, because you're only working a 1/3 of the acreage. That's that strip where you're planting. You're maintaining your soil biology because you're only tilling that strip, leaving the soil in between the rows and your tire tracks alone. That's where you build your earthworms back. I base my farm biology based on the earthworms I see on when it rains. If I see earthworms, I know I'm doing my job. You go across a conventionally plowed field, you probably won't see very many earthworms. So as far as following topography of the ground, certain fields, yes, we will zone build according to the contour of the ground. If it's a curved hill, we'll try to go across the hill instead of up and down the hill, obviously. Occasionally you got those headlands that you have no choice but to do it. But what we found was with the zone till over the years, the zone till actually does two things. It drought proofs the crop and it flood proofs the crop. It lets the plant roots go deep, finds the moisture in droughts, so you don't lose the crop during the drought. In a flood season where you have torrential rain after torrential rain after torrential rain, where you get one of those fluke thunderstorms that dumps 3 inches in 5 minutes on you, the water goes down deep into the ground. It doesn't run off the field. It'll go down it soaks down into the sublayer and hopefully into the natural aquifer where it's available for following crop needs. One thing with the zone till is we've eliminated most of our irrigation needs. We haven't irrigated our farm in 5 years. And that's even including after transplanting. We transplant, we gave up using water on our transplanter. We go in and we zone till, we transplant right into the zone. We don't use water, we don't use anything. And we haven't really lost a crop since we've done it that way. We rely on Mother Nature to provide us the rain when we need it. And sometimes, you get those sleepless nights where you're like, okay, do we drag out the irrigation system that's been sitting for 5 years? Or do we wait another couple of days and hopefully a thunderstorm or a storm rolls through? So, it's a learning curve. But we're not having to use irrigation. We're not using irrigation to have to set crops in and supplement.
Great. I got two more questions.
Sure.
And then we'll let Tim take it away with the Q&A
Sounds good. Go ahead, Steve. Keep going.
Yeah. So, Ron, real quick, tell me a little bit about your corn burner. I know other growers do this to heat their greenhouses, like you do. What kind of system is it? How is it set up, and what kind of corn do you use for that?
All right, so our corn burner, we came to a point last year where our oil furnaces that are in our greenhouse are 20 plus years old, and we're in need of being replaced. And cost versus returns, we had to look at it carefully. And one thing we've been looking at for a couple of years now is the central boiler Maxim system, which is actually classified as a wood pellet burner or biofuel pellet, biofuel burner. And I really looked into it. The timing was right. The availability was right. Everything fell into place last year. We decided to pull the trigger. We put one in. We burned wood pellets for the first half of the season to start drying our corn. Our corn boiler actually is our heat source for our corn dryer. We don't have a huge 500 bushel or 1,000 bushel corn dryer. Ours is actually a custom built micro dryer that was designed for my popcorn crop. And it allows me to dry 25, 30 bushels at a time. Yeah, it works very well. And because it's integrated into our corn boiler supplies the heat to that unit. And that in turn provides the heat for our workshop or our greenhouse space. We're burning approximately 2 bushels of corn to dry 25 bushels of corn within a 12-hour period of time at low temperature. Because we're drying at low temperatures, we're actually maintaining and keeping the BTU rating on our corn higher, and it burns cleaner and hotter because the natural corn oils are there. They're not turned into just dry starch like they are on a hot corn drying system. So we in turn then use that corn during this winter months to heat the greenhouse once we're done drying corn via a unit heater off the same dryer. There's a unit heater as a secondary heat source. And I'll tell you what, we've eliminated 2,500 gallons of oil this last winter.
Wow.
The farm itself over the last year has actually eliminated 46 tons of CO2 emissions.
Wow.
Most of that is fuel oil related, diesel fuel related. Corn is our biofuel corn burner is actually a positive it's actually a positive CO2 eliminator because it uses less CO2 to produce it than what it does it actually produces as you're burning it. So we come out ahead on the corn. And because we're actually using our corn as part of our agritourism, it's already bought and paid for long before the season. It's part of our corn maze. So
Great.
Our general business it's paid for in full before we ever harvest. So it's a double dipping on the profitability, I guess you could say.
Take it if you can get it, huh? Tim, do you have some questions there?
Yeah, we're really up against the clock here. It was great information and stuff. But one question, Ron, the machine behind Steve again, they wanted you to tell a little bit more about that machine again.
Okay, so that's an Umberfirth 132 zone builder. It's what they call their zone builder. It's a double shank, straight shank. The straight shanks cut a nice clean slice into the soil where it's not a parabolic shank, which fractures and lifts. The straight shank slices down deep. It runs approximately, we run 14 to 16 inches in the ground to the point. We run fracturing wings that actually lift the soil lightly in that zone. And then it has 2 discs that cut the zone. So it's creating a zone that's about 10 inches wide. The firming wheels on the back actually firm the soil. They offer multiple options with that unit, all the way up to, I believe, 24 rows. It does take a little bit of horsepower to pull, but it does a phenomenal job on tillage. It grows the greatest carrots and greatest beets. When you pick a beet, if you grow red table beets on a zone, you pick beets that have roots, tap roots that are 16 inches deep.
Yeesh.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy when you pick a beet and it's got this monster root on it. And the carrots on those zones are always phenomenal. They just grow nice and straight down. You know, it was the biggest piece of equipment return ever on the farm.
Wow. Well, awesome information. That actually puts us up on the clock here. So I have a feeling we have a sequel to this webcast here today. If nothing else, Steve will be writing an article that on this whole operation.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That will be appearing in our horticulture publications. Like I said, Vegetable Growers News, Fruit Growers News, Organic Grower, National Nut Grower, Produce Processing. So stay tuned for Steve's article in the coming weeks. Once again, Ron, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Congratulations on your efforts. You guys are doing awesome things.
I'd like to thank Valent, of course.
I also wanted to let everybody know that this has been recorded and will be available on demand. Stay tuned. Once the technical gurus do their thing, we'll have a link posted on our websites and through United Fresh, so you'll be able to rewatch this or share it with coworkers and friends. I'd also like to thank Leslie Garcia and everyone at Valent U.S.A. for sponsoring our inaugural Specialty Grower Sustainability Award. We really appreciate your support and your commitment to a sustainable future. Also, a special thank you goes out to United Fresh for actually making this whole thing possible. We really appreciate it. We love to spread the word about good things like the things that Ron and his team are doing. So on behalf of Steve Klosterman and myself and everyone at Great American Media Services, I'd like to thank you once again for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone.